Hello, hello. In this video, I want to talk about your options when you have a knockdown at the wall. I'm going to talk about the knockdowns after two of Asuka's main wall combos, and after her down 1+2 knockdown low. The meat of this video will be me advocating for the Oki situation that you can enforce after down 1+2, and after her less common 2-1 down 1+2 wall combo, for keeping the other player at the wall and putting them in disadvantageous knockdown states. I'm going to talk a lot specifically about the face down feet away knockdown state that you get after down 1+2, for example, and Asuka's ability to flip the other player into a face up feet away state. I think this state has a ton of potential for applying Oki at the wall because the other player's options for waking up from this knockdown, and as well as their ability to get away from the wall, are very limited, and Asuka has great options to take advantage of this situation by applying tech traps and punishing certain wake-up options. With that in mind, this video isn't just about wall combos, but since wall Oki tends to come after a wall combo, and because I'd like to be thorough about Asuka's wall Oki theory, I'm going to start by talking about Asuka's standard wall combos, and breaking down what your best options are after their knockdowns. So let's get into it. The two wall combos I'll talk about are 1+4-2-4, which I'll call White Heron for brevity, and 2-1 down 1+2, which I'm going to call Basho. One of my big goals with this video is to encourage people to use Basho more, but to start with, I'll break down White Heron. The knockdown from White Heron gives you a lot of frames, and the other player can tech roll afterwards. If they don't tech roll, they end up in a face-up feet towards state, where they have access to all of the game's wake-up options. But because of the amount of frames that you have, when you're making a decision about your follow-up, the only thing you're concerned about really is whether or not the other player will tech roll. So here are what I think are your best options after the White Heron knockdown. Back 1+4 is Asuka's safe, low reward catch-all option after White Heron. When you use back 1+4, it'll connect against all of the other players' wake-up and tech options. And if they don't tech and they just stay on the ground, back 1+4 will also hit grounded. So it has absolute coverage. It covers everything, all of the other players' options. The downside to back 1+4 is that if the other player tech rolls and you use it, you will basically completely lose the wall. This time it wasn't so bad, but depending on the angle that you use White Heron and the direction the other player tech rolls, you can get a side wall or you can practically side switch after back 1+4. And needless to say that when this happens, you can't really apply Asuka's wall game anymore. And that's the price that you pay for back 1+4 having the coverage that it does. If the other player tech rolls and blocks the back 1+4, it's safe on block. It's -8 on block, the low, so they can't punish it. And they also can't low parry it out of a tech roll. So it's zero risk. They can't do anything about it. You have string extensions after back 1+4 that you can leverage to try to get some mental frame advantage. You know, discourage the other player from pressing after back 1+4. The 3 in particular knocks down on counter hit and guarantees forward 3+4, so that's pretty strong. If the other player blocks back 1+4, they can interrupt the 3 with something quick, but if you think that they're going to do this, you can do back 1+4 instead, pull that out of your pocket, and that'll interrupt anything that the other player does after back 1+4, but you're probably not going to get that far if we're being honest. So back 1+4 is probably your best option that you can use to just test the other player's behavior and see how they like to get up from the ground after White Heron, so that you can take advantage of their decisions better later with a different option of yours. Or you can use back 1+4 just as an easy option that you can use after White Heron to get the upper hand consistently. Delayed back 4 also has really great coverage. Just like back 1+4, a delayed back 4 will connect against all of the other player's tech options, and when timed properly, a delayed back 4 will stuff stand-up, wake up backwards, and all wake-up attacks. It'll bop them on the ground like that as they're trying to stand up. So if they want to get up and you're doing delayed back 4, they have to tech roll or they have to stay on the ground and wait, which is the weakness of back 4 in this situation. It doesn't hit grounded. Back 4 is very beneficial though, compared to back 1+4. For one, if the other player tech rolls and you do a delayed back 4, the angle that you get to the wall is not nearly as bad. The angle is still very shallow, but you can kind of work with this. You can get 1 or 2 extra decisions at the wall before the other player is able to weasel away by moving or tech rolling or whatever. Back 4 also has really good string extensions to deter the other player from pressing after back 4. If they tech roll here and they block back 4 and they want to take their turn, they have to contend with the 2-3 follow-ups, which will wall splat them and you can get a wall combo or convert into a juggle off of a side splat. So they're really disincentivized from pressing after back 4, and you can take advantage of that, of their hesitation, by running them down and applying wall pressure, doing whatever you want to do. As for the timing for the delayed back 4, if you take a look at the knockdown after White Heron, you'll see that they kind of bounce on the ground twice before they're able to tech roll or get off the ground otherwise. And I find that the proper timing for the back 4 in this situation is to press back 4 during that second bounce. So if you do that properly, then you will get what I described. It will track the tech rolls and not whiff against them, and it'll stuff the stand-up and the wake-up backwards and all that. In terms of how this specifically interacts with wake-up attacks, if timed properly like this, it won't counter-hit launch them. It will bop them on the grounds like that, just like you do against a stand-up. If you do want to counter-hit launch these, you can delay the back 4 a little bit longer, but if you do that, just be aware that like the collision against spring kicks and stuff can be a little bit sketch. So I recommend just doing the quote-unquote normal timing for the better coverage. I think that back 4 after White Heron is probably the best default option for the balance between coverage and continuation that it has. One last thing that I almost forgot to mention about back 4. If the other player stays on the ground and you whiff back 4, they do still have to contend with the 2-3 extensions. So for example, if you think that they're just going to stay on the ground the entire time, you can punish that by committing to the entire string and hitting them with that last hit on the ground, and that'll also get you gusto if you do back 4, 2, 3, 1. Yeah. If they want to try to whiff punish your delay back 4 by staying on the ground after White Heron, they have to contend with the 2-3 follow-ups there too. If they want a wake up kick, for example, after you whiff back 4 and they get hit by the 2-3, that'll wall splat them and you get a whole wall combo and all that. So even if you whiff back 4 when they're staying on the ground, they do still kind of have to respect you. Down forward 3 and down back 3 are guaranteed if the other player doesn't tech roll sideways. You see here that I actually have them set to back quick roll. And both down forward 3 and down back 3 are guaranteed. You would use down forward 3 for the extra damage, or you would do down back 3 for the way that it flips them on the ground like this, which inhibits their tech roll. It makes it harder for them to get away from the wall. If the other player does tech roll sideways and you try to do one of these moves, you will whiff, and they can whiff punish you. It's kind of tricky to whiff punish you, but they can do it, so that's something that you have to be aware of course. As for the tech roll, when they're on the ground, after that down back 3 flip, let's simulate this. After White Heron, they're in a face up, feet towards you position. When I flip them with down back 3, they get a decent tech roll to the right. You know, that's still a pretty good wall angle for you. But if they tech roll the other way, it's practically non-existent. You know, they can't move away from the wall very easily. In either of these cases, you can track them with a forward, forward 1, or you can track them with a realigned down 1+2 or whatever, and they can't interrupt you. So that's cool. Or if you want to, you know, move to try to keep your position at the wall, you can just do like a sidestep left cancel. And because the other player can only move in one direction with their tech roll, that sidestep left will account for both tech rolls, and you can keep a better angle at the wall that way. Pretty cool. Beyond all that, it's a pretty standard wall oki situation. If they tech roll, for example, you can just apply like basic rung up oki, try to apply a 50-50 or whatever. You can use your movement to try to keep your wall position, try to guess which way they're going to tech roll and sidestep to keep their back to the wall. One extra thing that I didn't mention is that you can use forward 2 cancel into a throw, which will track their tech roll, and it'll also connect if the other player stands straight up or wakes up backward or back quick rolls. And in any of these cases, they won't be able to interrupt your throw with a button. So that's pretty neat. They would have to do something that crushes your throw, or they would have to break it, obviously. It'll also interrupt a wake up mid kick. Which is pretty neat. So it covers a decent amount of options, so you might get some mileage out of that if the other player has a hard time dealing with throws. The last thing to mention is that if you're going to apply some run-up oki, and you're going to use something like down 1+2 that has very poor tracking, you have to run up quite a bit because the other player gets such a good tech roll after White Heron in order for Asuka to fully realign and allow that to hit. And when you're dashing in for so long, you're vulnerable to getting hit by the other player's numerous wake-up attack options. So that's something that you have to consider. When I'm deciding what wall combo I want to use, I tend to pick White Heron when I want the consistent damage, usually to end a round. But I don't like its knockdown very much, because the other player can tech roll afterwards. And that allows them to escape the wall pretty easily, and you don't really have any way to dissuade them from tech rolling apart from running up and applying a 50-50. So when I want to have better oki, and keep my advantage state at the wall longer. Like, I know the wall combo isn't going to kill, so I want better pressure for longer. I'll rely more on the knockdown from the Basho wall combo instead. So let's get into that. The Basho wall combo does less damage than White Heron, but in exchange for that, you get this knockdown that prevents the other player from tech rolling sideways. In order to block after Basho, the other player has to hold backwards to back quick roll. Another thing to note about this knockdown, if the other player doesn't back quick roll, which will mean they just stay on the ground, they're in a face down, feet away state, which prevents them from using spring kicks or recovery kicks. After this knockdown though, when you're thinking about what you want to do for oki, all you're really worried about is whether or not the other player is going to back quick roll. And whether or not they back quick roll, they won't be able to get away from the wall right away, which is really good. So this knockdown, what it does is it allows you to apply strong tech traps for extra damage, and it also gives you a lot of other options that you can use to transition into better wall pressure or harass the other player if they choose to stay on the ground. Before I break down what your options are after Basho, something that needs to be mentioned is that Basho, if you hold down afterwards, can recover in full crouch, but you don't want that if you're using Basho for the Oki. So what you want to do is you do the wall combo, then just take your hands off the directions so that Asuka can recover standing. And that way you can do all of your options from standing that I'm going to talk about. So with all of that being said, here are what I think are your main options after the Basho knockdown. The easiest thing to do after Basho is a 50-50 tech trap between down 1+2 and down forward 3. If the other player back quick rolls after Basho, they have to take this 50-50, where if you hit down 1+2, you get a guaranteed forward 2 for good damage, and if they get hit by down forward 3, you get a whole wall splat, and you can rinse and repeat. If they don't back quick roll, then both of these options will hit grounded. So if they don't back quick roll, then no matter what you choose, you're going to get guaranteed extra damage. The downside of the 50-50 tech trap is that it has sketchy continuation, because for one, if they don't back quick roll and they get hit by one of these moves, they can tech roll away from the wall. If you do down 1+2 into forward 2, if they back quick roll and get hit by it, they can tech roll away from the wall that way, and you can see here that it completely side switched, so I obviously can't apply much wall pressure that way. And if they back quick roll and block down forward 3, you are -8 on block, so the other player can take their turn and press buttons on you, or they can try to move to get away from the wall. So with this 50-50, you're basically going for easy extra damage instead of reliable wall pressure. If you're willing to make some sacrifices for better continuation, you can go for a slightly weaker tech trap that helps you keep your advantage state at the wall. So as opposed to down 1+2 versus down forward 3, for better continuation, your best lows will be down back 3 and down back 4, and your mid will be forward 1. To start with down back 3 is my default option after Basho in most cases. It is not as rewarding as down 1+2, obviously, but if the other player back quick rolls after Basho, down back 3 still does decent damage on hit. It's also way less risky on block, it's only -12, so you can only get launched for it if the other player low parries you. If they get hit, it's also +4 on hit with the other player's back to the wall, so you can frame trap them, or you can start to apply wall pressure, or do whatever you want to do. If the other player doesn't back quick roll, and they end up on the ground instead, down back 3 will also hit grounded. And this is where this move really becomes interesting as an option, because down back 3 flips them from face down feet away into face up feet away, which is a really advantageous position for Asuka, which I'll get into in a little bit. Down back 4 is really similar to down back 3. If the other player back quick rolls, it'll still hit low, and if the other player doesn't back quick roll, it'll still hit on the ground and give you that face up feet away flip. Down back 4 doesn't deal as much damage on hit as down back 3 does, and it's only 0 frame wise on hit. It's even between both characters, but it allows you to transition into her full crouch game, which can be interesting. And another benefit of down back 4 is that its forward movement can help to make tech traps more reliable after down back 4 on a grounded hit, which is another thing that I'll get into shortly. Forward 1 is really strong for continuation after Basho. If they back quick roll and they have to take it, on block you're +5, so you can apply a frame trap, you can go straight into pressure just like after down back 3, and it's pretty tricky to sidestep things when you're -5 as well, so it does a good job of keeping the other player at the wall that way as well. On hit, if they guess low after they back quick roll, you get these guaranteed hits into a wall splat and heat, and you can do the whole combo and rinse and repeat. The weakness of forward 1, which you may be aware of if you play Asuka, is that If the other player stays on the ground, it'll whiff and you get that massive whiff animation, and the other player will be able to stand straight up and launch punish you. That's intended behavior, because forward 1 is really strong in this situation. So it's good for the other player to be able to make a read on you. But it's not all bad, because remember, your down back 3 and down back 4 options also cover if they stay on the ground. That'll hit them on the ground. So they're still putting themselves in a bit of a mix-up situation. And one more interesting thing to note is that if the other player tries to get away from the wall by doing a long side roll, they actually won't be able to whiff punish your forward 1. So that's pretty neat. So just to recap, because this is a little bit messy, when you're deciding what you want to do for Oki after Basho, you're basically deciding whether you're going to go for the 50-50 tech trap for damage, or if you're going to go for the weaker tech trap for continuation. So that is 50-50 tech trap after Basho, down 1+2 versus down forward 3. For continuation, after Basho, you do down back 3 or down back 4 versus forward 1. With all of those options after Basho out of the way, I want to talk more about the knockdown states involved and what they can do for you. I mentioned earlier how Basho puts the other player in a face down feet away state, so let's elaborate on that. Basho and also down 1+2 share the property of putting the other player in a face down feet away state, or FDFA. They're in FDFA if they don't back quick roll after Basho, and down 1+2 is a hard knockdown into FDFA. Both of these FDFA knockdowns give you a guaranteed hit. You probably already know that you can confirm down 1+2 into forward 2. The Basho knockdown, if the other player doesn't back quick roll, actually guarantees a forward 3+4, thanks to the extra frames that you have, and this can be a good option if you know the other player isn't going to back quick roll for optimal damage. When you hit the other player on the ground with certain lows like down back 3 or down back 4, it'll flip them from face down feet away into face up feet away, or FUFA. And this FUFA flip is really beneficial because 1, it limits how the other player can tech roll. 2, they still don't have access to all of their wake-up options, so they can't spring kick or recovery kick. And 3, they recover in back turn if they choose to stand up or wake up backwards from this state, which you can punish on a read. In terms of the tech roll after a FUFA flip, the other player has a decent tech roll to the right, but their tech roll to the left is really minimal. You'll see that they hardly move at all. Both of these tech rolls, even the wider moving right tech roll, tend to be tracked by all of your options. So you can see like FUFA flip into forward 1, tracks just fine. I can do it into down 1+2, and that also tracks just fine. You can tech trap really easily here. If you want to maintain your wall position when the other player tech rolls after the FUFA flip, because they can only tech roll significantly in the one direction, you can account for both direction tech rolls just by doing a micro sidestep left. And so after both tech rolls, you'll still have a really good angle to the wall. And then because they're still recovering from a tech roll and all you did like it was a sidestep cancel, you can run them down, you can apply pressure, do whatever, and they can't do anything about it. If the other player back quick rolls or tech rolls, you can treat the situation exactly as you would after Basho. You can choose to apply a 50-50 tech trap or go for any of your other options for continuation. One interesting factoid that an eagle-eyed viewer may have picked up on is that the direction of the other player's tech roll during a FUFA flip is actually inverted. So if I have the CPU set to input a tech roll left, and you can also just try this yourself, and if they do that, they actually get a tech roll right. And I don't think that this is really going to affect your decision making at all, but I do think that it's pretty weird and funny. Because this whole thing with the FUFA flip is so potent, and because down back 3 is such a good option on its own after an FDFA knockdown, this is why I tend to use down back 3 as a default option after the Basho knockdown. And I'll even oftentimes use it as my option after down 1+2 at the wall for better continuation. Down 1+2 into forward 2, of course, as I mentioned earlier, will completely lose you the wall if the other player tech rolls. But down back 3 only does 3 less damage than forward 2. And you don't get gusto, I guess. That's something that you have to consider. But in general, I think that this is a small price to pay for better continuation at the wall. Down back 4 also is a rock-solid alternative to down back 3 as a FUFA flip because it will make tech trapping more consistent thanks to its advancing movement, as long as you recover standing for the better alignment. If you recover in full crouch, it won't always work as well. But the point is that there are some situations where down back 3 will push the other player too far away for your tech trap to connect properly, but the forward movement from down back 4 will alleviate that. You have strong options to punish certain wake-up options on a rig if the other player doesn't tech after a FUFA flip. But before I get into those, I want to touch on some neat tech that you can apply after an initial FDFA knockdown. Down back 4-4, after an FDFA knockdown at the wall, will do a little backwards splat and deal 21 damage if the other player stays on the ground and doesn't tech roll. If the wall is straight ahead or to Asuka's right, you can also add down 4 for 3 extra damage, and a pretty swaggy looking mini combo. This can be a quirky max damage option after Basho or down 1+2 if the other player isn't trying to tech roll. If the other player tries to tech roll after the down 4, which I'm not going to try to demonstrate because it's a pain in the neck, the tech roll that they get is very small, and all of your post-Basho options for tech trapping and continuation are available. If the other player does tech roll after getting hit by down back 4 on the ground, the second hit of down back 4-4 is safe on whiff, and down back 4-4-4 can be used to counter hit launch the other player if they try to take their turn after their tech roll, but this can be low parried, so you gotta keep that in mind. If the other player tries to back quick roll after getting hit by down back 4 on the ground, what will happen is that they'll get hit on the ground over and over by its extensions, as long as the wall angle prevents them from getting knocked away too far. So as for what you can do after a FUFA flip if the other player doesn't tech roll, to begin with, if they stay on the ground, the aforementioned leg cutter tech with down back 4 is a neat option for harassing the other player if they refuse to tech roll. Instead of down back 4-4 into down 4 as your mini combo, if they don't tech roll after a FUFA flip, down back 4-4 will give you this low front-facing splat that combos into the third extension. This means that down back 4-4-4 is an interesting option to use when the other player isn't tech rolling at all. And as I mentioned before, the leg cutters will also hit on the ground continuously if the other player is trying to back quick roll after getting hit by down back 4, even after a FUFA flip. If the other player tech rolls after getting hit by a down back 4 on the ground after a FUFA flip, the situation is the same as before when I mentioned the leg cutter tech. Down back 4-4 is still safe on whiff, so you can give up 8 damage from that previous combo earlier for safety if you want to cover both tech roll and not tech roll. Down back 4-4-4 will counter hit launch them if they try to take their turn after a tech roll, but this can be low parried. The drawback of the leg cutter tech is that all of the movement from the down back 4s, the leg cutters, and the ability for the other player to tech roll means that you aren't going to reliably keep the wall. The leg cutter tech is mostly there for testing and punishing the other player if they refuse to tech roll. Beyond that, your options for hitting the other player on the ground if you don't want to lose the wall are a bit limited. Most of your reliable grounded hitting moves will still allow the other player to tech roll away from the wall in this situation. If you aren't worried about losing the wall, you can go for any of your grounded hitting lows like down back 3 or down back 4, or if you want better damage, you can go for forward 2 or forward 3+4. You can hit grounded with forward 2 for its speed to minimize the amount of time that the other player has to stand up and block, and you can use forward 3+4 for the extra damage and the safety on block. If you're dead set on keeping the other player at the wall though, 3+4 has your back. 3+4, when it hits a grounded face-up opponent, is still a hard knockdown, so they can't tech roll. If they want to get up off the ground, they have to choose a wake-up option. Just make sure that when you're using 3+4, you're using it from the proper spacing, because if you use it too close, it can side switch. In terms of the situation, you are at 0 frames after 3+4 hits grounded like this, and the other player's wake-up kicks from the FUFA state are 18 frames. You can beat these wake-up kicks, for one, with down 2, bizarrely, even though down 2 is also 18 frames. I guess the heat engager just wins in a trade. But with down 2, you get damage and a heat engager, so that's pretty neat. You can also beat wake-up kicks with back 4 in the down forward 3 for a wall splat, wall combo. And, of course, you can just backdash and make the wake-up kicks whiff and whiff punish with forward 2. If the other player wakes up backwards, you can wall splat them out of it with down forward 3 and get a combo. If the other player side rolls, you can track their side roll with down back 4. And down back 4 also, at that rate, is just a good option for if you have an inkling that the other player is going to stay on the ground. You could, of course, just go for another 3+4. If they stay grounded and do nothing, it'll hit again, obviously. If they side roll, it'll whiff, but it's safe on whiff when they side roll. If they stand up or wake up backwards, 3+4 is safe on block. If they do a low kick, you'll crush it and you can convert into a wall combo. The only risk, really, is that if they do a mid wake-up kick, it can float you. But it's unlikely that the other player is going to be able to convert that into a juggle. Beyond all that, if they're going to stand up or wake up backwards, then you have the opportunity to run them down and apply whatever kind of wall pressure you want. Something that I'm for some reason only now realizing quite a while after recording that section is that if you do, like right after FUFA flip, if you do 3+4, it will pretty much always switch sides. And this is what happens if you only ever play in practice mode and you don't ever try to apply this stuff in matches. But anyways, to get the proper spacing, all you gotta do is a micro backdash and you should get the proper 3+4 every time with no side switch. So finally moving on to proper wake-up options. We're gonna start with wake up backwards. Now, it's not likely that you're going to see the other player wake up backwards in a way that you can take advantage of after a FUFA flip, because if the other player is holding back, what's most likely going to happen is they're going to back quick roll. And when they do that, they'll be able to block whatever you can do. If the other player does happen to wake up backwards, though, like they stay down on the ground too long and they can no longer back quick roll, here's some stuff that you can do. So down forward 3, for example, will catch the wake up backwards. Forward 3 also will, so these will both wall splat. So those are some decent options, safe on block mids. Forward 2 and forward 3+4 will also launch and wall splat respectively, if they happen to wake up backwards at the wrong time. And these will also hit grounded if they're staying down. 3+4, Asuka's orbital mentioned earlier, will also work, but it can have some odd, inconsistent behavior depending on when it hits a back quick roll. Sometimes you get like different directional facing knockdowns and you can't always convert into a wall combo, but in any case you'll still have the upper hand, so it's still a solid option. Speaking in more practical terms, if the other player decides to stand up or do a wake-up kick after a FUFA flip, you can punish these options pretty heavily on a read. These are the two best options I've come up with so far, starting with back 4, 2, 3, 1, the entire string. This is the highest damage you can do if the opponent stands straight up. It will backward splat, and you can confirm it into a combo, which I'll plaster on the screen and demonstrate for you now. So that whole combo will do 84 damage and you get gusto, which is pretty good. The back 4 will also counter hit wake up kicks, of course, and when you confirm it into the entire string, you get 39 damage and gusto, which is also pretty good. If you do just back 4 and counter hit a wake up kick, you can convert it into a wall combo. You can go straight into White Heron, or if you're really slick, you can do wall standing 3 after counter hit back 4 for a proper wall splat, if I can do it properly, and you can do whatever wall combo you want. However, because it's really difficult to hit confirm back 4 into its follow-ups, because you can only delay back 4-2 for 10 frames, I would recommend just committing to the back 4-2 and confirming into the last hit. Remember also that if you think the other person is going to stay on the ground through all of this, you can just commit to the 3 to hit them on the ground for some damage and gusto. So with all that in mind, back 4 has some pretty decent coverage in this situation after a FUFA flip. Back 2, 1+2, 4 is the other best option I found, and this is how you'll deal the highest damage against a wake-up kick. So what you'll do is you'll do back 2, 1+2, and if the other player does a wake-up kick, this will counter hit them, and you can confirm it into the 4 for a clean wall splat. This will also clean wall splat if the other player stands straight up. As long as the wall isn't to Asuka's left, though, and you don't get a wall splat that you can get a wall combo off of. Instead, they'll do this turnaround motion, and you get this weird Schrödinger side splat. So you have to do a pickup juggle to convert off of this. You can do the pickup juggle however you like, but I find that a good consistent way to do it is to sidestep towards the wall and convert with the combo that I'll show on the screen and demonstrate for you. So that'll get you 70 damage and gusto, and it'll work every time. Side rolls are a bit awkward to deal with, but the FUFA flip does give you some sauce. If the other player chooses to side roll, long or short side roll, it seems like no attacks that are worth talking about will track both side rolls consistently if you do them immediately after a FUFA flip. The big culprit here is the side roll right. It makes it really hard to hit with everything. Down back 4 can sometimes work, but not all the time. It's inconsistent. You can, however, react to a side roll and punish with a sufficiently aligned forward 2, or even forward 3+4, if you're really quick about it. After a short side roll, the other player is still in a FUFA state, and they wake up in back turn, so you have a lot of time to land a hit on them. I'm pretty sure that you can also hit them with a sufficiently aligned forward 2 or forward 3+4 if they do a long side roll as well, but it's a bit of a pain to test. You can also hit them with other stuff, theoretically, but you would have to guess what they're committing to between a long or short side roll, or which wake-up option they'll use, so it's a bit sketchy. Waiting to react to a side roll doesn't exactly have much coverage on its own, so side rolling is probably one of the best options that the other player has to throw a wrench in your plans with this advanced wall oki. But I could see you working this side roll punish into your movement, say if you're doing a micro sidestep block to contain the other player's tech roll. You can be on the ball and be ready to forward to their side roll if they try it. And you'll also be blocking wake-up kicks and stuff when you're doing this, so it isn't all that bad. With all of the wake-up options covered, I just wanted to remind you of what I mentioned a little while ago while I was introducing the other player's tech options from a FUFA flip. If the other player chooses to tech roll or back quick roll after a FUFA flip, you can treat it just like the Basho wall combo knockdown, and do any of your post-Basho stuff. So you can do your 50-50 tech trap, or you can do any of your continuation options. You can also micro sidestep left to contain the other player's tech rolls and keep your advantageous wall position for a little while longer. All the better if the other player does the work for you and chooses to do a back quick roll instead of tech rolling. I want to cap off all of this discussion about knockdowns and wake-up options by tying everything together now and summarizing how the FDFA knockdown and the FUFA flip can play out. So after you do a Basho wall combo, assuming they have an idea of what's going on, the other player has to make a difficult choice. If they back quick roll, they risk taking a 50-50 tech trap or having their back to the wall against Asuka's wall pressure. If they stay on the ground, they risk getting FUFA flipped and then having to deal with FUFA flip oki, where their options are very limited and they'll still have a hard time avoiding tech traps or getting away from the wall if you play your cards right. After a down 1+2 knockdown, if you choose to take your guaranteed down back 3, the other player is forced into FUFA flip oki and has to make a choice with the odds stacked pretty heavily in your favor. If they tech roll, they're vulnerable to a tech trap like a 50-50 or something that puts them in minus frames, and they have to guess. If you choose to move along with their tech roll, it also won't get them far from the wall, and you're still in their face with them right out of a tech roll. If the other player stays on the ground and tries to wait out your pressure, you have interesting tools to beat them up for it. Leg cutters will hit them continuously on the ground if they refuse to commit to a tech roll. If they were hoping to just take a hit on the ground and tech roll away afterwards, 3+4 will deal damage while keeping them put, forcing them to choose a wake-up option or try to side roll away. If they try to stand up or wake up backwards and block, or they try to break your momentum with a wake-up kick, you have powerful tools with back 4 and back 2 that you can leverage on a read to destroy these wake-up options. Even if they try to side roll away from the wall, because of their vulnerable FUFA wake-up options, they can be punished on reaction if you weren't already committing to an attack. Ideally, when you're implementing this more advanced wall oki, you're either translating it into big damage or a KO, or you're able to come out of a rewarding oki situation with the other player's back still firmly to the wall, ready to receive Asuka's obnoxious wall game. So that's it, actually. After all of that nonsense, when the other player eventually gets up off the ground, that's when you would transition into applying Asuka's wall game or her rushdown, or whatever. I hope that all made sense. This stuff gets really complicated, so it took me a long time to iron out all of the kinks in this theory and write an outline for this video that flows well. I hope all of this encourages more Asukas out there to apply Basho as a wall combo more often and to try to maximize oki at the wall. Be aware that this is all theory. None of this is terribly battle tested. I haven't been able to play a whole lot lately, but I would love for other Asukas out there to watch this and report back to me on how effective some of these ideas are in real matches at various levels of play. At a later date, I'll make a video on theory about Asuka's wall game. It'll have a similar focus on keeping the other player at the wall, because it's a huge win condition for Asuka, especially in Tekken 8, I think, where snowballing is so important with this character. For now, thanks for watching. I want to make more Asuka theory videos in the future. I'd like to make some videos about the core pillars of her game plan, focusing on certain things like her keep out and her rush down. I'd also like to make some cool videos about Discord tech stuff that you aren't really going to find in general Asuka guides. I do have a bit more free time lately, so I would really love to make like a Tekken 8 Asuka theory video maybe once every couple weeks, but we'll see about that. It's kind of hard to find the time for it, especially depending on the subject matter and how much I need to record myself. This video, it was really hard to do all of this recording. I'm not very experienced with reading off of a script or off the cuff. In any case, if I were you, I would join the Asuka Discord if you want to talk to me or any other based Asuka players, and you can be on the front lines of pushing this character forward too. Also, leave a comment if you have any thoughts on some of my ideas, or if there's anything related to Asuka theory in particular that you might like to see me cover in another video. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.